Although many would dispel the notion that intelligent alien life exists elsewhere in our galaxy, there are a number of theorist groups that not only believe that alien life is here, but that such extraterrestrials have already established vast research bases on our planet for the sole purpose of studying the human race like a pack of lab mice. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we will be going over a few theories surrounding these alien research bases and where they might be residing on and around our planet in an effort to better understand the mystery of extraterrestrial habitation. Secret alien bases in Antarctica. Around the world, we find evidence of pyramid structures that have often challenged our modern notion of the age of humanity and the technological and developmental might of our early civilizations. Given that these great structures are often found in areas that predate archaeological beliefs of early human civilizations, then finding a large ancient megastructure in an area known to have been uninhabited by humans with 100% certainty could prove to be evidence of possible extraterrestrial intervention. This decision is what led the ancient alien community to look towards the only continent on the face of the planet that has yet to be inhabited by any human tribe, the continent of Antarctica. Given its only recent discovery and completely uninhabitable terrain, to find such a structure amongst its icy lands would be more than enough evidence to prove the theory of extraterrestrial habitation. Using complex gathered research data and satellite imaging, the community worked day and night in the hopes of uncovering any evidence of these structures. Fortunately, they did. Believed to be far larger than the pyramid at Giza, the ancient astronaut community began noticing strange mountains that did not seem to match with the overall landscape of the region. Not only did these supposed large mountains not exist anywhere close to a mountain range, but the region in which it inhabited did not appear to even have the stresses or strains of the tectonic plates that could cause a potential mountain range in the first place. Not only this, but the size of the mountain in that area ended up displaying the proportions of a perfect pyramid, with 4 even sides, a symmetrical peak, and the same degree and slope gradient compared to the large pyramids at Giza. Can also be found thanks to efforts made by researchers to locate the peaks of the mountains in attempts to disprove these satellite images, but only work to prove their existence and showcase their symmetrical and artificial design in clearer imaging. This could very well mean that the continent of Antarctica is home to one of the last surviving remnants of an ancient advanced civilization, vastly predating the existence of the human race. In the center of the moon. On November 14, 1969, in an attempt to better understand the makeup of the moon, NASA placed multiple seismic readers across its surface and then soon launched a lunar space module on a collision course for the moon. The idea behind this theory was to allow the lunar module to strike the moon with such a dramatic force that it would send reverberations and specific frequencies throughout the entire core of the moon and accurately map out the inside of the moon. What they soon discovered was baffling. Original theories and hypotheses had suggested that these reverberations would not last longer than a minute. Given that the surface of our moon is covered in mostly basalt of which would work to absorb these reverberations and, given its extensive presence, was believed to make up the majority of the mantle of the moon at this time, it was mathematically calculated to prevent the however, as the lunar module struck the moon, the entire celestial body began reverberating for over an hour. NASA scientists described its reverberations similar to that of a church bell ringing. There is still no reasonable hypothesis for the cause of this today, and no further information can be gathered given NASA's lack of future missions to the moon. The most legitimate theory available at this time comes from the works of Russian researchers and Alexander Shabakov that had posited the artificial moon theory. They began to notice that the craters of the moon, regardless of the impact size or diameter, all equaled out in depth. They also noted that these craters generally had very shallow and flat interiors, and in other areas even containing convex bottoms. They hypothesized that meteors are hitting an armored hull underneath the balsamic surface of the moon, preventing further depths into the celestial body, and believing the moon to be a possible spaceship created by complex alien life. This theory was only reinforced as the mathematics for the moon and its density became an apparent issue. Given its size, location, and theorized general makeup, the moon should have a density of roughly 5.5 g per cubic centimeter. However, given its orbital path and overall physics, we find the moon to be only 3.3 g per cubic centimeter, causing the moon to be significantly less dense compared to that of our planet despite theories of the moon's creation coming from the materials of the Earth. Reinforcing facts became connected to the strange, anomalous properties of our moon. The moon is too big to have naturally been caught into the orbit of our planet. For comparison, our moon is 2,159 miles in diameter, whereas the largest Martian moon is merely 14 miles in diameter. This has led to a wide array of debates among the scientific community as to its formation, and even recreations and simulations of impact theory have proven ineffective and mathematically implausible as to the formation of our moon. Additionally, the physics work by Carl Sagan helps to prove that it is impossible for a celestial body to have a hollow interior unless by artificial means. The hollow sound of the moon's makeup point to the artificial moon theory even further and could mean the moon itself is a massive research base for extraterrestrial life to watch the Earth below. Orbiting the Sun. Later earning the name of the Helios hand, footage began to surface amongst conspiracy theory communities surrounding an object of immense size, roughly the size of the gas planet Jupiter that had appeared to be manipulating energy from the surface of the Sun. The footage shows what appears to be long tendrils transferring large amounts of photonic energy into a massive warped field that surrounds a completely dark spherical object. After a large amount of energy is transferred, the object shoots away at superluminal speeds, leaving behind a massive ripple on the surface of the Sun that appears to have been caused by the warping of space-time itself. This has led many to believe that the object is a massive alien spaceship that could very well be the size of Jupiter, making it one of the largest megastructures to ever be constructed in the galaxy. This could mean that the entire spaceship serves to be for a massive alien race that is secretly residing within our solar system, completely hidden to our technologies. At the bottom of the ocean, back in 2016, a strange and unexplainable deep-sea anomaly was discovered. Spotted using state-of-the-art satellite information, there appears to be a massive pyramid construction underwater that completely dwarfs the size of the pyramid seen at Giza. It appears that the structure seems to be somewhere around 3.5 to 11 miles across and looks to be resting in a large area of underwater terrain in the Pacific Ocean. A little west, many can even view the massive structure using Google Earth satellite images when looking up the coordinates 12 degrees north at 119 degrees west. The discovery of the object was made by a researcher located out in Argentina by the name of Marcelo Icazasta. He claims that the structure could be evidence of the formation of an ancient civilization long before man was supposedly capable of roaming the planet, and that, at a different time in Earth's history, could have experienced a change in tide that would allow the construction of the monstrosity. His theories, however, have not prevented a wide range of conspiracy theories from forming in the community. Many believe that it could very well be a possibility that the structure isn't that of a large underwater pyramid, but that of a secret alien base inhabiting the ocean floor. Many have often referenced the existence of strange sightings of unidentified submerged objects or that of UFOs exiting from under the ocean and shooting off into the sky in different maritime accounts. Given the structure's massive size, sudden appearance, and strange artificial shape, this has led many to undoubtedly believe that it appears to be of extraterrestrial origin. Interestingly enough, other researchers have picked up on the discovery, and well-known alien hunter Scott C. Waring has already posted in his blog UFO Sightings Daily that an 8.5-mile estimate is only a conservative estimate, and that the true size of the discovery could be somewhere north of 11 miles across and possibly grouped up with other impossible-to-see structures in the region. Given the large number of reported USOs throughout the area, known as unidentified submerged objects, that have demonstrated similar properties to that of unidentified flying objects, this has led many researchers to believe that the underwater pyramid is that of an underwater alien research base still being used in the modern day. What do you all think of these mysterious bases? NASA employees are regarded as people that search for the truth. They use science in order to explain anomalies that are found in the cosmos. But what happens when a former NASA scientist comes forward with a startling claim? This is exactly what happened when Norman Berggren came forward with his extraordinary claims. He has claimed that there are giant spaceships that can be seen residing in Saturn's rings, further saying that these should be investigated as they could be a threat to life on Earth and the rest of the solar system. These bold claims are backed up with interesting photographs of Saturn. The images in question show what appears to be a long-looking object close to the giant planet. Dr. Norman Berggren worked for over 10 years at NASA as a research scientist. It's also important to note that he has a 13-year history working at the Lockheed Missiles and Space Company. The doctor has looked through images of Saturn and noticed various anomalies. These photographs were taken during the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 spacecraft missions, which happened in 1980 and 1981. Incredibly, he claims that the rings of Saturn may have been created by giant EMVs. This stands for electromagnetic vehicles, further saying that if this was the case, they would have been controlled by very intelligent beings. Interestingly, these objects have not only been captured near Saturn, but close to Jupiter, the Sun, and our Moon, leaving some to suggest that these crafts are interested in our solar system and planets. He's called these anomalies living alien spaceships. He's also said these crafts have the ability to self-replicate, and he said these giant spaceships are doing this at an incredibly fast rate. Interestingly, various people have said this theory can be backed up by recent photographs. Going back, the Cassini probe sent back images which appear to show a hole in one of Saturn's F-rings. Theorists then suggested that one of these motherships could have burst through the ring, leaving a massive hole behind it. However, NASA scientists and other researchers are not on board with this theory, saying the most likely explanation for the giant hole is that of space debris, saying that a large asteroid most likely collided with the F-ring and caused the gap. Scientists have also said that photographs aren't always reliable, and sometimes they show these anomalies. Other objects that have a similar look to these include that of Oumuamua. Going back on the 19th of October in 2017, astronomers in the scientific world were amazed when they noticed an object traveling through our solar system. The object in question had come from another solar system, and it was quickly given the name of Oumuamua. What stood out about this object, though, was that it seemingly appeared out of nowhere, which in turn caused many to ask questions. When researchers were able to lock onto the object, they could see it traveling around the sun and then shooting away again. However, after this, it was not to return. Astronomers were able to record data on the object for a short period of time. After looking at the data, it turned out that Oumuamua was in our solar system for over a century. The reason Oumuamua wasn't spotted sooner is because it wasn't close enough to reflect enough light for astronomers to pick it up. So what do you guys make of these photographs? And what do you think these objects could be? Bigfoot over time has been used to refer to an ancient legendary creature, a giant human ape-looking figure which is claimed to have grown to the dense forest of the Pacific Northwest. Scientists have claimed that the creature bearing semblance to an ape is a human relative, which dates back as far as 15,000 years ago. Although all of this evidence and these claims are yet to be proven beyond reasonable doubt. It's as if Bigfoot only selects a certain sect of persons to reveal itself to, because every scientific endeavor to prove their existence has ended up being a futile journey. I'm quite sure you must have heard of stories of how people go missing or are kidnapped into the forest, or how people claim they hear strange voices, see strange footprints, and even see faces which look like that of a human, but upon closer look at other features, it's evident that it's not. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 humanoid cases. Indian Army claim they found Yeti tracks. The Yeti is a mythical beast, also known as the snowman, which is an ape-like creature reported to be living in the Himalayas, Siberia, Central and Eastern Asia. The Indian Army Mountaineering Expedition Team claim to have found Yeti tracks. The footprints for the Yeti have been photographed for evidence. However, this has sparked rumors, jokes, and ridiculous comments showing disbelief. Some people believe that the alleged photographic evidence was for a publicity stunt. Long before now, people have always engaged in the search for the whereabouts of the Yeti beast, which at the end of the day, seemed to always turn out to be a futile effort. People are now amazingly surprised at how suddenly the Indian Army have claimed to have found its footprints. Could this be a sudden sheer coincidence? Or was it pre-planned? Such claims will attract public contention, and it eventually did. The Yeti beast has only been claimed to have been seen in the past in a national park. The photo evidence of the Yeti from the Indian Army was taken close to the base camp in the Himalayas on the 9th of August 2019. In the past, similar claims have been made about the discovery of the Yeti. In 2011, fingers were found that were thought to be that of the Yeti. However, upon close scientific examination and evaluation, eventually these turned out to be samples of human bone. Similarly, in 2014, 30 hair samples that had earlier been held to be hairs of a Yeti were found to have originated from a variety of beasts, such as a polar bear and other types of bears and dogs. In 2017, hair, bone, skin and fur was found by Charlotte Lindfest and her team. Thought to be samples of a Yeti, They were yet again tested and resulted in being a Himalayan brown and black bear. Aside from the photographs or the footprints, the Indian Army haven't been able to provide any other evidence to corroborate their claims about the existence of this beast. Some people believe a Yeti is only to exist in the imaginations of people bought by mythological stories. In 1951, Eric Shipton, a British explorer, took a similar picture on the west of Mount Everest, which looks like a giant ape creature. Isn't another futile discovery that upon close examination may turn out to be footprints of other animals, just as earlier discoveries and claims about the Yeti, which were eventually labeled as false. The Chechenia cryptid. The Chechenia, also an ape-like creature, is otherwise known and referred to as the Siberian snowman, having a remarkably close resemblance to a human with a broad shoulder, long hair, and using animal skins for clothing. The Chechenia has been reported to be within 5 to 7 feet tall and has been ascribed different names from people of different tribes. The first public knowledge of the Chechenia was in 1928, when the Soviet Union sent an expedition group to gather reports and accounts of this human-like beast. This was close to the Indagrika and Yana River. Legend has it that it lives in the mountains of Verkhoyansk. Upon return, they reported that the large humanoid was similar to the accounts of the indigenous Namagic tribes. Dating back as far as before 1928, claims that Chechenia is notable for conducting raids on barns and places where food was stored and supplies were kept. This would happen during midnight when everyone was asleep, and it would be unnoticeable, only for them to wake to find footprints and their food missing. These indigenous tribes also described the creature as a well-built man wearing pelts for clothing and a white patch of fur on its arm. These local tribes have also reported that Chechenia would sometimes eat and feed on human flesh when it would run out of places to raid for food. It was also claimed that a group of people killed a snowman, the same as the Chechenia, with a corpse spotted to have the tail. Myra Shacklayer, a British anthropologist, asserts to have seen the Chechenia, which she refers to as Machini, in 1985. Conversely, Vladimir Pushkarev, a geologist who conducted research in Syria in 1970, says that over time civilization and modernization have led to the extinction and reduced the population of this human-like beast, making it extremely hard for anyone to lay their eyes on it. Modern reports also have it that in 2002, an unknown large ape-like creature was caught in a wolf trap. The whereabouts of the corpse, however, remains unknown, as there are conflicting stories that it was either eaten by wild animals or somebody took custody of it, while others claim the local people buried it. A year earlier to that, there was another story of a young man named Albert Slepsov who mistakenly found a dead animal which closely resembled a human. Likewise, this corpse is also yet to be found. These conflicting and unverified claims about the existence and whereabouts of the Chechenia will remain unknown until it can be proved that this creature is without a doubt real. The Ibu-Gogo corrupted. Ibu-Gogo, a human-like creature which comes from Indonesian mythology. It's also referred to elsewhere by other names. According to the indigenous language, Ibu means grandmother, and Gogo means one who eats anything. This means the Ibu-Gogo is a creature that can eat and feed on anything it sets its mouth on. It was claimed to be very much alive in the 19th century, up until the latter end of the 20th century, where it was said to have been driven to extinction by rigorous human hunting. The hunting was enlarged due to it always being found to steal food, ruin crops, and kidnapping children hoping to learn from them. They were particularly characterized to have a very hairy body. They had and spoke their own language, and they could repeat exactly verbatim in like manner any other language spoken to them, and often characterized as being a very fast runner, who could walk for very long hours covering a vast amount of land. Traditionally, the Ibu-Gogo was turned to be a monkey because they were quite similar with only a line of difference. However, this creature is said to be extremely smart, as it watches the humans and is quick to learn from them. The extinction of the Ibu-Gogo was reported to be summed up when people set ablaze to their caves. This was achieved when the Ibu-Gogo was deceived and received a gift of palm fiber to make clothes and other materials. Unaware, the creatures took the fiber into the cave where others of their species were, with the intention to make use of it for new clothing. However, the villagers immediately threw in a fire, setting the cave ablaze and killing most of them. Stories, however, has it that a pair was able to escape the fire incident, and if any Ibu-Gogo is spotted in modern day, it's sure to be a descendant of the ones that escaped from the cave. So what do you make of these mysterious humanoid cases? NASA have announced that another asteroid is making its way towards our planet, and they said that it will be at its closest point by the weekend. They've described it as being as big as the Empire State Building, saying that it will need to be monitored. They said that it will get close to us by Saturday evening. The asteroid in question is between 800 and 1,900 feet in diameter, larger than the skyscraper that can be found in New York City. According to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, they said that it won't hit us. Researchers working at NASA's Near-Earth Objects Center said it's monitoring the space rock and giving us updates when they receive them. Asteroid 2002 NN4 is just one of many that have come close in recent times. NASA said it will fly past our planet at a distance of a few million miles, but they have said they still puts it in the category of near-Earth objects, and that the next time it comes around it could get closer. NASA did warn, though, that if this object did cloud of our planet, it would cause a massive amount of damage. The celestial bodies travel at around 20,000 miles per hour, and due to its size it's bigger than around 90% of all asteroids. Ian J. O'Neill of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory said the following: in short, 2002, NM4 is a very well-known asteroid with a known orbit that will pass by Earth at a very safe distance. There are plenty of other near-Earth objects that could be a threat to our planet, though, some of which are miles in diameter. NASA are constantly scanning the sky for near-Earth objects. These are small celestial bodies such as asteroids that could harm the planet. One of these that's recently made the news is that of 2002, PZ39. NASA confirmed at the time that this large asteroid will come close to our planet, saying that it's currently traveling at around 34,000 miles per hour. However, despite the mainstream media picking up this information, researchers have said it's unlikely to make contact with our planet, further saying that it's much smaller than the asteroid that took out the dinosaurs. This celestial object came close to our planet on the 15th of February. NASA made the following statement: potentially hazardous asteroids are currently defined based on parameters that measure the asteroid's potential to make threatening close approaches to Earth. NASA went on to say that their research showed them the asteroid in question is over 3,200 feet in diameter, and if it were to make contact with our planet, it could potentially set off a chain of events, including that of setting off supervolcanoes. It's important that astronomers conduct further research on these objects when they're first detecting a celestial body early on is essential to understanding what its behavior is like. For example, back in 2018, we saw more than 91 NEMIS hits of different asteroids of all sizes passing by our fragile blue planet. The scary thing is, out of 91 asteroids that passed by us, only 30 of these asteroids were seen coming prior to their passing, and only 2 of those were discovered 1 year ahead of the NEMIS event. This means that for more than 89 of the asteroids nearly striking the Earth in 2018, only 2 of them could have been prevented with our current technology, showcasing just how threatening these large celestial bodies can be. What you make of these discoveries? Scientists have just come forward and said that monkeys have escaped with COVID-19 samples. This was after they attacked a lab assistant and made their way out. A few hours ago, it was reported that a group of monkeys attacked a laboratory assistant and managed to find their way out to the laboratory with a bunch of virus blood test samples. This was near Merit Medical College in Delhi, India. At the time, the researchers at the center were carrying out tests on patients. The monkeys then stormed the building and snatched the samples from the medical staff before quickly making their way out of the building. After running outside in the hopes of catching the monkeys, one of the workers said they spotted one up a tree eating the samples. The medical staff had to watch as the monkeys consumed the samples which had the virus. Researchers have said this isn't a surprise, and that these red-faced macaques are very intelligent, and all they were doing was taking advantage of the situation. Residents in the area have said that the monkeys of New Delhi are congregating, and that they are more irate than normal. The animals have a close relationship with the people of New Delhi, and this has caused some concern. Experts have told people not to feed the monkeys and try to stay away from them. This is because feeding them can cause the virus to mutate and infect primates. One person on Twitter said the following: as if 2020 wasn't crazy enough, we now have monkeys running around with virus samples. Another person said the following: this is literally Planet of the Ames. Nice knowing you all. Others were not happy and said the facility should have been more protected and shouldn't have been accessible for monkeys to break in and out. Many people around the globe are beginning to grow restless of the current situation. People all the world over are starting to relax a bit, with it being reported that many have been seen meeting up with their friends and family. As of right now, the government have said that we shouldn't get too comfortable and that people should still be practicing social distancing. They have said this is more important now than ever, as they don't want to see a spike in people getting infected. As of right now, officials are looking towards getting a vaccine out to the masses. One of the leading voices in this movement is that of Bill Gates, who has said that all 7 billion people living on the planet should be made to take it. This is in order to stay away from the virus spiking in the future. Mr. Gates said the following in an interview: "It's important that there's a global response. I'd say it's critical because the tools are going to reduce deaths. The drugs, that's a global thing to get out. And the thing that will get us back to the world before this event is the vaccine and getting that out to all 7 billion people." So what do you guys make of this news? SpaceX has done an amazing job at putting themselves on the map. In 2002, Elon Musk founded SpaceX to make more affordable rockets. Its first 2 rockets were the Falcon 1 and the larger Falcon 9, which were designed to cost much less than competing rockets. A third rocket, the Falcon Heavy, scheduled for launch in 2017, was designed to carry 53,000 kilograms to orbit, nearly twice that of its largest competitor, the Boeing company's Delta IV Heavy. They recently made the news for launching their Dragon spacecraft. It took U.S. astronauts to the International Space Station where they were able to dock. Elon was overwhelmed with the achievement. After all, it was a massive moment for SpaceX. SpaceX engineer John Futerspiel said the following: "When we wanted to take Dragon and make it human-rated, I think we took a different approach to spacecraft design than had previously been done, because we wanted this to feel like a 21st century spaceship. Many people of the world over watch as man once again enters space, proving that when we work together we really can achieve greatness." It wasn't long, however, before people started to notice some interesting things about the mission. In fact, one individual claimed that during the mission they spotted an unidentified flying object. The person posted the image to Facebook, which in turn created an interesting discussion. There's those that said the object in question does look interesting, and that it could be an unidentified flying object, while others suggested it was just a piece of space debris or something that could have fallen off of the rocket. One person said the following: "Space is interesting, and it seems that whenever we send cameras up there, we always manage to capture something. While watching it live, I also saw a few things fly by. Who knows what's up there and who knows what's watching? It's always good to keep an open mind," while others weren't open to the claims, with another person saying the following: "The photograph is blurry and doesn't show anything that can be identified. What we are most likely looking at is just a piece of space debris that happened to fly past." Various people over the years have claimed to have spotted strange things on live cams, causing many people to put forward different theories for what they could be. NASA have said the space above our planet is littered with debris. A study in 2013 said there's over 170 million bits of debris outside of our Earth that's smaller than 1 centimeter. There's over 670,000 pieces of debris between 1 and 10 centimeters, and around 29,000 larger pieces were estimated to be in orbit around the Earth. As of right now, Elon Musk has said he's not stopping anytime soon, and that SpaceX has plans to land on the Red Planet. He is currently working with experts and astrophysicists that are in the process of devising new ways to replenish the Martian atmosphere. Not only that, but they also plan to repair the planet's ecosystem to make it more suitable for human life. They hope to have achieved this by 2030. If this fails, NASA have said they're also looking at putting people on the Red Planet, saying they hope to do this by 2030. So my question to you guys is, what do you make of this image? And did you watch the launch live? Anonymous have described themselves as an international group of hacktivists. They are best known for their cyber attacks and being truthful about what's happening in the world. One thing they've repeated over the years is that they have no leadership and that its members won't be identified. Some have classed themselves as everyday people who, in their spare time, work for the people. And the idea of working for the truth is just a front. This has been denied, however, by various members, saying that they work on many international issues that need to be focused on. As some have pointed out, though, whatever the group is doing, it seems to be working, as various people worldwide have been arrested due to leaks from the group. This is why when the group comes forward and announces something, it's usually picked up by the mainstream media. Back in 2012, the group was named one of the 100 most influential people by Time magazine. Recently, protests have been reported from across the planet, with many people having opinions on the matter. Anonymous accounts have said they're with the people during this time, and that they will be revealing the sad truth about police departments. One video has already been seen by millions of people, and they detailed that police and other departments need to step up and support the public. Interestingly, though, something happened that seemed to have even confused them. One account's name, Urananus on Twitter, said the following: "We don't know why we just got 3.5 million more followers, putting us at 5 million. But if you're new to our feed and you're not a bot, we can be pretty graph. We don't mince words. We tell it like it is. It upsets many people." As of today, the account has over 7.4 million followers. The group once again made news back in 2017 when they said that NASA had discovered extraterrestrial life and that the agency would be making an announcement soon. A presenter said in a video that a NASA social administrator hinted at there being very big news and that the discovery might be released shortly after. But NASA were quick to come forward and say they didn't have any news to release. NASA said the following: "As of right now, these reports are false. The National Aeronautics and Space Administration did say, however, that they have missions that could help answer these questions. But as of right now, there's no evidence of extraterrestrial life." The person leaking this information is part of Anonymous. Some have said there could be some truth to it. Though NASA continues to deny a variety of theories surrounding that of alien findings and extraterrestrial sightings, it appears there are pieces of evidence of alien life that some say are so obvious that NASA has refused to even comment on them. These include astronaut testimonies and strange objects being seen on live feeds. However, as of today, NASA denies these claims. What do you make of the group Anonymous? Recently, photographs have been taken above Israel, which show mysterious lights pulsating. Those who witnessed the event said the lights in question were coming out of a hole in the sky, while others said they were coming out of another light. They were described as being a bright color and pulsating. However, some noted that they didn't make any noise. When trying to take photographs of them, the residents said their cameras weren't able to focus on the objects. And this was because the lights they were giving off were very bright. One resident said the following about the event: "I was alerted to the lights by one of my friends, who said that something strange could be seen in the sky. As I went outside, I could see a strange-looking light. It was flying silently in the sky, stopping and pulsating every 30 seconds or so. After doing this for several minutes, it then stopped in the sky and started to ripple. After this, the larger light split into smaller lights. These smaller lights somehow came out of the larger light and started to act the same, flying around silently while pulsating. In all my life, I've never seen anything like this before. Me and my friends have no idea what we witnessed." Interestingly, many the world over have reported similar-looking objects, and they've been given the name of glowing UFOs. Glowing UFOs come in all shapes and sizes, with the most common ones being circular and triangular in shape. What's strange, though, is that these glowing UFOs make no noise and are able to travel at extremely high speeds. One of the issues when trying to snap photographs of them is that they turn out blurry. Photographers have said this comes down to the bright lights they give off, and because of how fast they're traveling. Snapping an image of a glowing object several hundred meters away and while moving is no easy task. So what are people seeing? There's no shortage of videos and photographs showing these mysterious glowing lights. Interestingly, Skinwalker Ranch is one property where these orbs have been seen. One family who lived there started noticing glowing balls moving around the property. The bulls gave off a crackling sound, seemed intelligently controlled, and could either hover or move unbelievably fast. One evening, the family watched as a blue bull approached one of their horses. The light hovered within a foot of the horse's face, which spooked it immediately. From a distance of 10 feet, they shone a flashlight on the blue globe, and it then retreated at a fast speed. It then approached one of the family members, as if inspecting them. They described it as a glass ball around the size of a baseball, which appeared to contain two blue fluids which intermingled with each other. Some have suggested these lights are connected to unidentified flying objects. Some, however, have said they could be ball lightning. Ball lightning is the strange occurrence of when the conditions appear to be just right, and the static discharge of a normal thunderstorm creates what appears to be a floating ball. These balls are said to be pure lightning and energy. Not only do these strange, unexplained instances of ball lightning create an unexplainable perfect spherical shape, but they also appear to move erratically through the sky and have often been mistaken as alien encounters. Interestingly, scientists are no closer to understanding what causes ball lightning, and believe that the circumstances surrounding the appearance might be completely unexplainable, given the numerous amount of variables surrounding their creation. So what do you make of these mysterious sights seen above Israel? Recently, various people across the planet have been detailing mysterious things in our sky. People have described them as looking like asteroids, but what's odd is that some people have said that as these objects are coming towards our planet, they've suddenly changed direction. This has caused some to speculate that these objects are not asteroids, but rather something more mysterious. This photograph was recently published to MoveOn, which stands for the Mutual UFO Network. They're responsible for keeping a record of thousands of UFO sightings that get reported across the planet. The eyewitness said the following: "It was 918 on the 17th of March, 2020. We were in lockdown due to what's going on, and Bristol Airport was only receiving 2 flights a day from Dublin. I know this because my wife is an immigration and customs official at the airport. In normal times, planes and trails across the sky would be a commonplace. In 2019, we had a loft extension. This is now our bedroom, and we have some fantastic views over the city. On the 17th of May, I looked out our west-facing scarlet window and saw the strange line going up vertically near a block of flats. I showed my wife the line. Then, as she stepped away, I caught a glimpse of a black dome source-like object sitting just above what I assumed was a chemical trail. I called my wife, and when she came back, the object had reached the clouds and continued up. Oddly, in the darker clouds, the trail seemed to be lighter as it went up. The movement of the object was pulse-like. It spurted for a distance, then slowed, then spurted again. This seemed to be the pattern of propulsion. It was vertical, so not similar to the aircrafts that would normally fly over horizontally. I then checked the flight radar app. No planes were flying in the area due to lockdown, apart from a flight which was at Bristol Airport from Dublin. I then checked my night sky app, which wasn't showing any abnormalities. Around an hour later, Venus became visible slightly to the right. I had been watching Venus move across the west for the last 3 months, so was very familiar. No military vehicles were nearby on flight radar, and there was no known rocket launches in Cardiff or Bristol, because rocket launches don't happen in the UK. A drone seemed unlikely given the trails. As mentioned so far, many people have come forward in detail to seeing similar-looking objects in our sky. Some have put forward the idea that these objects could be from space. NASA and the European Space Agency have reported several objects that have come close to our planet in the last 12 months. Interestingly, these are only the ones we know about. NASA hoping quite open about the facts that every so often an asteroid will approach us that we're not aware of. This happens because the asteroid detection machines don't always pick up every celestial body. And this has made some suggest this is what's happening here. Others went down the route of suggesting that these objects could be UFO-related. There's not a country in the world that hasn't reported a UFO. And this has caused some to suggest that this is what people are seeing. As with most of these reports, not much information can be found before they vanish, and it leaves the few people that saw them wanting answers. So what do you guys make of these mysterious objects seen above England? And have you seen anything similar? Over the last few weeks, residents in Brazil have been reporting some strange things. Many people have come forward and said that unidentified flying objects have been seen in the skies. It was soon reported that one of these objects crashed to the ground. The location where the lights have been seen the most is north of Rio de Janeiro. The Brazilian press have been reporting on the objects, as locals have been sending in their videos. A metallic object was soon reported to have made contact with the ground. It's now been reported that a giant creature has been witnessed near San Luis Potosí in Mexico. One of the eyewitnesses came forward and said the following: "I was with my husband playing with our child when we heard a boom. It was like an explosion. Then we looked towards the hillside from where we thought the sound originated. We thought it was a landslide. The only way I can describe what I saw was that it looked like a giant. The time was around 5:30 in the afternoon. I was very frightened. My husband mocked me, but when he saw that thing he got scared and said we should get into the house. This was even though he was very far away." Many of the residents and elders who live in these mountains have said they've never seen anything like this before. Interestingly, this testimony matches others who have come forward. It's said that not many saw this creature, but some residents on the mountain did report seeing it. Due to the alleged crash that happened in Mexico, it's caused some to suggest that this creature could be linked to what's going on. Various locations across Mexico have been reporting some strange goings-on. Many UFO reports have been coming from this region in the last 2 weeks, with hundreds of people detailing what they've seen. And with this photograph, it's caused people to put forward some out there theories. Some have said that next to this creature looks to be a craft of some sort, leaving others to put forward the idea that this object is actually a UFO. Others have said that legends of skinwalkers and dogmen can be found throughout the region. The legend of the shape-shifting entities commonly known as skinwalkers has been largely dismissed as a joke. Skinwalkers are people who can willingly transform into any creature of their choice, and most of the time they are seen as wolves, owls, eagles, crows, foxes, or croats. Some of them can steal a person's face and appear to look like them. It's said that if a person locks eyes with a skinwalker, they can absorb into their bodies and control their actions. They are also believed to have the ability to enchant corpses' powers and use it as others, however, have said that the image is not clear enough to give a definitive answer. So what do you guys think is going on in Brazil? And what do you make of this photograph that was taken on this mountain range? 2020 has been an interesting and tough year for some. Along with many things that have played out, unidentified flying objects have been a topic that keeps popping up. The Pentagon and Department of Defense Kim Forden said the UFO videos that surface online were genuine, and this was massive news for the UFO community. One of the videos that dates back to 2004 shows a mysterious craft being tracked by the military. Sugo, who is a Defensive Department spokeswoman, said the only reason this video got out to the public is because it was linked. Some researchers, though, have said that various countries are aware of these objects, and that certain places on our planet are hotspots for these crafts. UFO researchers have said that Antarctica is one place that's of interest. Many stories have come from this region, detailing that not only are these objects particularly interested in Antarctica, but some have even been caught by satellites. One that many people may not be aware of is this UFO. The few that have seen these images have said that the object is actually a USO. These are unidentified submerged objects, and over the years many have come forward with their own reports, detailing that while being on the ocean they've seen mysterious lights under the water, only for them to exit the water at high speeds and fly off. This object is the typical disc shape and can allegedly be seen exiting the water. There's arguments about where the object was photographed, with some saying it was close to Antarctica, while others have said it was snapped near the Arctic. Interestingly, these unidentified submerged objects are nothing new. They go back many years and sometimes come from very credible sources. In one incident, the former U.S. Navy Commander David Fravell narrated seeing a dark mass under the water. This was while they were retrieving a drone for flying practice, and described it as a big mass kind of circular. The second time the pilot saw the dark mass, a practice torpedo that the pilot had been sent to recover was sucked down into the ocean, and this was in the presence of an underwater mass never to be seen again. In another interview, David revealed that a 79-year-old lady reached out to him after his sighting went public, reporting that her father, who was a former naval officer, showed her a telegram which stated that unidentified objects had been seen going in and out of the water. In January 1965, Captain Bruce Cathy, a DC-3 pilot in North Island, spotted a USO and described it as metallic, streamlined, and symmetrical in shape. approximately 100 feet long and 15 feet on its widest part. The New Zealand Navy told Kathy that no submarine could have been in that area. These mysterious underwater objects are still being reported, with UFO researchers saying they remain a mystery and more research needs to be conducted. As some have pointed out, though, the image is hard to make out and it could be natural, such as a piece of ice under the water, or something else making a disturbance. So what do you make of unidentified submerged objects? The food industry has changed a lot over the years. It's now been announced that billionaires Bill Gates and Richard Branson have invested in Memphis Meats. The company is currently based in San Francisco and have announced that they are part of the clean meat movement. They've said the following on their website. Memphis Meat's mission is to bring delicious, healthy meats to your table by harvesting it from cells instead of animals. We call it cell-based meat, and our goal is to transform how food gets to the plains while continuing to eat what we love, saying great tastes better for the planet. At the moment, Bill Gates, Richard Branson, and Elon Musk brother have invested millions of dollars into their company. One of the reasons they've decided to invest in this product, though, is because of the positive impacts it has on our planet. It's been suggested that the company has been given over $17 million. The company creates common meats such as chicken, duck, and beef. But where these guys stand out is making this product without wasting so much land. Everything is created in their land. They went on to say the following on their website. Cells are the building blocks of life. All the meat we eat grows from animal cells, and our approach is no different. We produce food by sourcing high-quality cells from animals. Then we cultivate the cells into meat by feeding them their favorite nutrients. We call this process essential nutrition because we feed the cells exactly what they need to thrive while eliminating any unnecessary steps along the way. By producing the meat from the cell level up, we can ensure the highest quality at every stage. Our goal is to keep the benefits of conventional meat while making our products healthier, safer, and more nutritious. We want you to enjoy the best of both worlds so you can have your steak and eat it too. As of right now, stem cell experiments and research have been featured in the news a lot. Scientists have said that they've created the world's first human-monkey hybrid, saying it was created in a laboratory in China. The reason for creating the hybrid was so that researchers could use its organisms to save people's life. The idea is that these will be given to people that need life-saving transplants. The scientists and researchers have said they plan on continuing their research on using primates. As you can imagine, when this news was announced, there was quite the reaction. There's those that believe we shouldn't play God, and that we should leave things how they are, while others argue that is the next step in our evolution. Further saying that because we are the superior species, we should be carrying out these tests. The team that created the hybrid said they had injected human stem cells into a monkey's embryo. The researchers were confident in their work and said that a human-monkey hybrid could have been born. Angela Ray of the Barcelona Regenerative Medicine Center said the following: what happens if the stem cells escape and form human neurons in the brain of the animal? Would it have consciousness? And what happens if the stem cells turn into sperm cells? However, other researchers said that if this was the case, the cells were simply self-destructed. Other scientists have come forward and said that it's a step in the right direction and that further tests should be carried out. So what do you make of stem cell research and food being created in a lamp? The vastness and mystery of space have always fascinated mankind. From Aristotle's ancient Greek theories about the universe, to America putting the first man on the moon, the wonders of space go far, far beyond anything we could ever imagine. Thousands of feet above the Earth's surface, the deep black abyss of outer space has been inspiration behind countless works of fiction, movies, TV shows, and documentaries. Not to mention some pretty elaborate hoaxes. Although our world and the one sitting high above us may be far apart in miles, there have been times where space and Earth have gotten closer than some people might feel comfortable with. Despite UFOs and aliens being recurrent favorites in the world of science fiction, there are people on Earth who claim to have had very real dealings with these otherworldly phenomena. So today, here are Unexplained Mysteries. We'll be taking a look at these 3 mysterious UFO and alien encounters reported from around the world. 1884 Nebraska UFO crash. 1884 The infamous American West. Advances in technology were fueling the belief in the manifest destiny in the United States. On the 6th of June that year, a band of cowboys was herding cattle in Dundee County, Nebraska. But what began as a seemingly normal day was to take on a strangeness all of its own, when streaking across the sky, which crashed a distance in front of them. Described as a blazing meteor of immense size by John Ellis, the heat coming from the object was so intense that it reportedly burnt one of the herders and prevented them from getting any closer. They therefore decided to return the following day instead. That night, local residents reported a strange glow coming from the crash site. Upon there, around 50 or 60 feet long and 10 to 12 feet in diameter. A local newspaper speculated that the vessel could have been from another planet. This idea was later promoted by Brand Inspector E.W. Rollins, a well-respected local man who documented that the metal that had been broken off the craft was like brass but incredibly light. The strangest part of the mystery was yet to occur. It was hastily reported by the press that the mystery ship had completely disappeared. A dense fog had descended upon the site, obscuring the view of onlookers. The ship then apparently dissolved in a rainstorm, with nothing left of it except some small, jelly-like pools. Some people thought that the local media had been overly eager in their attempt to discourage visitors from the crash site, an idea that began to sow seeds of doubt over the legitimacy of the crash. Many people now believe that the crash was simply an elaborate prank by a group of cowboys or set up by a local newspaper. Evidence later suggested that the events in June 1884 were hoaxes, and many of the so-called witnesses refused to comment further on their experience even years later. Was this because they were a party to the hoax? Or were they perhaps fearful of the memories? Whether or not the Nebraska incident was indeed a hoax is up for debate. However, it can't be argued that the events that took place in June 1884 marked the true beginning of this modern UFO craze in America, one of which has consumed the imaginations of millions. Thutmose III ancient Egyptian UFO sighting. It's probably fair to say that when you or I talk about UFOs and aliens, we tend to cast our minds to Hollywood sci-fi films about Area 51 or the outdated toys and comics of our childhoods. Ancient Egypt probably wouldn't feature on that list. However, in the land of the pharaohs, pyramids, and the Great Sphinx may have been a scene of the earliest sightings of UFOs known to mankind. Way back in 1840 BC. In that year, Thutmose III reigned over ancient Egypt. As well as being known for their rich culture, Egyptians were also very scientifically advanced for their time. It's believed that ancient Egypt in this time was the first place to experience extraterrestrial events. However, there are clear limitations in the evidence. This being said, Thutmose's people, judging by a few factors, had a fairly credible claim. The events that allegedly occurred were reported in great detail by the Tully Papyrus, a text that was discovered thousands of years later in 1933 in an antique shop in Italy by a director of the Egyptian section of the Vatican Museum. He thought it was too expensive to buy, so skillfully created a copy in hieroglyphics. The original Tully Papyrus was severely damaged and mistranslations of the text are likely, therefore presenting some clear limitations. However, many UFO researchers are convinced that it points to an extremely early existence of life from a world not our own. The now suspected UFOs the Egyptians wrote about were described as a circle of fire or fiery disk. They allegedly shined in the sky more than the brightness of the sun, and apparently were seen in numbers as the day went on. The Egyptians were known to be highly advanced in their scientific beliefs for the time, so it's unlikely they would have misinterpreted extreme weather for one of these objects in the sky, which further fuels the theory. As with many UFO sightings, the true story is extremely unclear, but it could be possible that the ancient Egyptians were onto something. We prefer to doubt and criticize, rather than believe and look optimistically at things. Whatever you personally believe about the Tully Papyrus records, it's clear that there is a possibility the reign of Thutmose III saw the first extraterrestrial life on Earth. The Maury Island incident. June 27, 1947. Harold Dahl was on a conservation mission on a boat with his son and his dog off the eastern shore of Maury Island in Washington state. Dahl and his party were gathering logs when he spotted 6 disc-shaped objects in the sky. One of these suspicious discs dropped suddenly. Swooping down around one, and 1,500 metal began to rain down on the boat like something from a sci-fi horror film striking his son Charles. The family dog was also hit and allegedly didn't survive the experience. Dahl managed to photograph some of the mysterious discs in the sky which, upon his return to land, he showed his supervisor Fred Chrisman. Chrisman was skeptical about the photos he had just been shown, so decided to go to the area where Dahl had seen the sources, to experience the phenomenon for himself. Unervingly, he too reported seeing them. The next day, Harold Dahl alleged that he was approached in a diner by a man in a black suit, asking about the sighting and warning Dahl to never speak of it. It is widely acknowledged that this part of Dahl and Chrisman's story created the men in black stories that we know of today. Chrisman and Dahl then contacted a man named Kenneth Arnold to talk about their experiences. Arnold had a fairly prolific portfolio of UFO sightings, including one which allegedly occurred only days before Dahl's extraterrestrial experience. After hearing of their story, Arnold was convinced by the veracity of their story. So much so that he contacted a U.S. Air Force intelligence officer, who flew into the area from California with another Army official. After inspecting the rogue metal that had fallen upon the boat, the officers concluded it was merely aluminium. They decided not to tell Arnold this, as to not embarrass him. At this point, things started to get weird. On their way back to California, the two officers' B-52 aircraft caught fire and crashed. Both officers were killed in the crash. This begs the question, had the officers seen something they didn't wish to report and were taken down as a piece of foul play? Was it an innocent accident? Or was there some sort of extraterrestrial element involved? Harold Dahl and Fred Chrisman later admitted the entire UFO sighting was an elaborate hoax. Interestingly, Chrisman would later testify in front of a grand jury that he was not involved in a high-level murder leading to the death of John F. Kennedy. Although the mysterious metallic objects that had fallen from the sky on the day of Dahl's sightings were deemed not to come from a flying saucer, some believe the material could have come from a slightly sinister source. It's possible that the metal was radioactive material from a U.S. military operation, or from a secret reactor core the CIA had been tasked with dismantling. Although the Maury Island incident may not have been entirely real, it marked the beginning of decades of fascination in the media about bridging the gap between alien and human life in the form of men in black. Those with 3 unexplained UFO encounters from ancient Egypt all the way to the modern day. Although there are discrepancies in the evidence gathered from these cases, we can be sure of one thing. Our deep sense of awe and wonder about space has always made us question what life, if any, might exist out there. Whether the people who claim to have made some sort of contact with alien life were telling the truth is a matter of continuous is that something must have started our fascination with extraterrestrial life, and this something could quite possibly have been something very real indeed. So what do you make of these mysterious UFO encounters? Space. For as long as man has known that space exists, he's dreamed of exploring the infinite black abyss above us. A fascinating dimension full of mystery and wonder, where few have been lucky enough to adventure. Due to its immense, unimaginable vastness, our universe has always been the subject of countless theories, fantasies, and notions about what lies beyond it. Despite the relatively small number of people who have explored space, mysteries surrounding the cosmos are plentiful amongst the astronaut community. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 intriguing astronaut and moon mysteries from those who've experienced space firsthand. Edgar Mitchell's extraterrestrial experiences. Edgar Mitchell was the 6th person to walk on the moon's surface. He piloted the Apollo 14 lunar module, the first Apollo mission attempting to carry out scientific experiments on the moon. The crew spent 9 hours working in its Morrow Highlands region. Despite being one of the lucky few who have experienced the wonders of spaceflight, the Mitchell may be more prominently known amongst the space community due to his outspoken theories on UFOs and alien life in the skies above us. Mitchell grew up in America amid the space race, a mere teenager when the suspected Roswell UFO crash occurred in 1947. Mitchell himself didn't live far from the site of the infamous crash. He pursued a military career, joining the U.S. Navy as a pilot in 1948, and was selected by NASA in 1966 to become an astronaut. However, it was towards the end of Mitchell's career and after his retirement that he became the focus of discussion about the potentially paranormal events that occur in space and those that he himself had experienced. It was during the Apollo 14 mission, unbeknownst to the world, that things began to get a little weird with Edgar Mitchell. After experiencing what he described as a savi kal persamati, a Sanskrit phrase which is interpreted to mean experiencing a spirit above creation, Mitchell became ever more interested in paranormal phenomena and consciousness. He began to conduct ESP experiments, experimenting with psychic abilities such as telepathy on board the Apollo 14 module. Chillingly, Mitchell's experience did seem to have affected him. He and a group of psychics later alleged that they had shared mental communications whilst he was in orbit. He later founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which continued the experiments he had been conducting in private and in space. During his lifetime, Mitchell consistently testified to the existence of UFOs. In 1996, in an interview on the American TV show Dateline, Mitchell stated that UFO contact is very strong, and that the U.S. government was covering up alien visits and UFO crashes. Mitchell's interest in this topic only increased. He believed that alien airstrikes on U.S. nuclear weapons testing range White Sand prevented the states from becoming a part of a nuclear war. He theorized that extraterrestrial life was monitoring the U.S. Army's weapon testing at White Sands, and that a series of subtle attacks on the base stopped the Americans from doing irreversible damage. Edgar Mitchell also claimed that people who worked at the Roswell crash site and in other top-secret suspected alien laboratories confided in him before they passed away. He says that some admitted the Roswell incident was in fact real. He spoke of how he had access to above top-secret information, which further fueled the fire that Mitchell had stoked during his life. He died in 2016, but the legacy of his work on the paranormal and his interests continue to inspire the next generation of those who believe in alien life. His various stories may or may not be true, but some of the evidence alongside them is extremely convincing. Helen Sharman's alien beliefs. Helen Sharman became the first British astronaut when she embarked on a joint British-Soviet Union mission to the Mir space station in 1991. With no less than 10 honorary doctorates from universities across England, Sharman's academic qualifications were undoubtedly impressive, but it was a statement she made in early 2020 that caught the public's attention. In an interview with Observer magazine, Sharman proclaimed that aliens exist, there's no two ways about it, and that it was possible that aliens are here right now, but that we simply can't see them. Furthermore, Sharman theorized about what these other life forms may or may not be like, when she asked, will they be like you and me, made up of carbon and nitrogen? Maybe not. And it's been noted that her views are shared with other astronauts, namely Michael Collins from the Apollo 11 mission. Despite not being the first astronaut to have views such as these, Sharman's statement is rather bold. Although she failed to add details about any sort of experience that might have fueled her claims, she did present herself with a tough question to confront. Who does hold the information on other life forms that many of us would like to know about? We have no idea what the governments around the world could be hiding from us. For all the UFO and alien enthusiasts out there, Helen Sharman simply stokes the fire of information release. There's a thirst for knowledge about what our universe really contains, and at the moment, people like Helen are the only ones who can truly provide an insight into what could potentially be being withheld from the public eye. The Apollo 10 moon sounds. In 1969, Apollo 10 became the fourth manned mission to space. Although no spaceflight can ever be described as routine, it's fair to say the experiences of the Apollo 10 crew over their voyage into space were anything but normal. Astronauts Thomas Stafford, John Young, and Eugene Cernan were flying around the moon's dark side on their missions when they began to hear eerie noises. Eugene asked his crewmates whether they could hear a whistling sound, describing it as a weird music, almost outer spacey. These sounds lasted for around an hour. NASA recently declassified the audio recordings from the flight, which allowed people to hear for themselves the conversation between the flight crew as the mysterious sound reverberated around them. The astronauts were clearly a little freaked out by the events and didn't think that anyone would believe their story. After all, claiming to hear mysterious space noises is likely to invite disbelief, especially when the people recounting the story have been living in a metal tube for 8 days. NASA apparently had, and still has, a very strong policy when it comes to the psychological health of astronauts, with any signs of mental weakness potentially resulting in grounding, meaning that astronaut is not allowed to participate in space missions. With this in mind, fearing their story might indicate they'd lost confidence during their flight and worried they wouldn't be taken seriously, Both John and Eugene contemplated whether to tell Mission Control about the noises. When the tapes were uploaded in 2012, the scientific community offered up a logical explanation for the unusual music the Apollo 10 crew had heard. According to a NASA engineer, it's likely there had been a temporary interference between the radio on the main ship and the radio on the lunar landing module. Others believe that charged particles in space may have caused similar interference, though this is disputed as the moon doesn't have an atmosphere or magnetic field. This theory therefore casts serious doubts over whether particles could have caused such interference at the ship's location when the sounds were heard. Either way, one question remains outstanding. Why weren't these tapes released into public domain for so long? Were NASA themselves disturbed by what they heard on the recordings? Did Thomas Stafford, John Young, and Eugene Cernan hear something or see something more than they should have up there? Why did it take NASA nearly 40 years to come up with such a seemingly innocent conclusion? There are countless potential theories that people have come up with. In the words of famed science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke, two possibilities exist. Or we are not, both are equally terrifying. What could really be out there, or perhaps a better question would be, who bears the knowledge about what's really out there, and is there any other life present among us now? There is still so much that we have to learn about our universe, and the scientific community has begun to acknowledge that there could actually be something else out there. Judging by these stories, there appears to be some credibility in the claims of the astronaut who believe there are some other life forms out there in the vast, limitless universe. So who should we believe when it comes to space mysteries? The people who have claimed to experience them, or government explanations? The choice, as always, is yours. Whether alien life travels in those famed flying saucers, or walks around with 3 eyes and a bulbous head, we don't know. What we do know is that we may now be facing the question of when, rather than if, ever get another visit from an extraterrestrial being. So what do you make of all these different experiences from outside of our universe? For years now, information surrounding mysterious creatures, objects, and other phenomena have become much easier to access. As information surrounding these strange phenomena have continued to grow, impossible to predict parallels have begun to surface, begging for a much deeper interpretation of reports and how they all interconnect. This has led to a new development I want to start in this channel. It's going to be known as ACIO reports. The ACIO reports will feature an ACIO, an abbreviation of the term anomalous creatures, items, and occurrences. These will include those that have captured the attention of researchers, of whom believe they can track, understand, and research the theoretical makeup of such anomalous entities. Not only could this help to establish serious research efforts in the fields otherwise completely ignored, but it would also help propel the mystery of such entities into the forefront of natural science, growing our understanding of the world around us. So many times in the past have interesting characters claimed impossible creature sightings and other fantastic phenomena. Facing the blunt criticisms of people claiming their information was far from factual, only to be proven legitimate later down the line, with none of the credit. An example of such a report was made surrounding an elusive creature known as the African unicorn, of which would later become a proven species now known as the okapi, that many researchers had denied existed within the Congo. Another example is the existence of the ether, proven by Nikola Tesla with his advancements in radio wave technology, only to have the name be recognized as the electromagnetic spectrum, despite Nikola Tesla naming it the ether. For its ether properties and ancient magic references, an effort made to delegitimize his claims of mysticism. The first report we'll be taking a look at is that of Bigfoot. I often get emails sent to me by you guys about strange things you've managed to capture. One that was sent to me a while back included an interesting photograph. The sender started off by saying they work in California and they often find themselves outdoors. This is due to their job. On this particular occasion, they was with their friend out in the sticks when they came across something they couldn't explain. The person details how their friend called the motor because he'd found something interesting. At first, the pair couldn't understand what they were looking at. They could only describe it as being the arm of a large humanoid. After the friend kicked it, they could see the arm was almost double the size of that of an average man's. It had brown fur and seemed to be missing the thumb, although the bone was still present. The friends then remembered they had a piece of blacktop wall in their trunk. They got it and then kicked the arm onto it, noting it was very hairy and they could even see the tendons running through the hand. Although this story sounds incredible, various people throughout the years have tried to fake evidence in regards to Bigfoot. Footprints and other body parts have been found all across the world. And one thing that genuine researchers have noticed is that there's been a huge surge in fakes in the last few years alone. One of the issues is that it's easy to fake evidence. Bigfoot molds can be purchased online, which can be used to create rags. Regardless of this, there's still those that take the existence of this creature seriously. The Sasquatch creature seems to stand somewhere between 8 and 10 feet tall. Some witness accounts have claimed the creature stood at nearly 15 feet tall, however, so variation in height amongst the species could be a factor. It's for this reason that the Sasquatch is expected to have an aging development similar to humans. They're most likely being birthed in the same way humans are. The creature is believed to have a total arm length of 120% the height of its body, similar to that of ape-like creatures with elongated forearms. Unlike an ape, however, the creature is believed to be bipedal. The bipedal nature of the creature most likely points to the theory of a working voice box, as the head would need to be in a position that allows for bipedal movement. Further evidence shows that the Sasquatch has a massive big toe to help with balancing issues, with it being nearly 3 times in volume in comparison to the size when adjusted for human scale. The Sasquatch also seems to be covered in hair all over its body. Nearly everyone around the world has heard of Bigfoot, or a creature similar in design and behavior to Bigfoot. This leads to a tremendous amount of reports, witness sightings, video evidence, physical evidence, footprints and theories into the creature that cannot be entirely explored within this document. Throughout the video, we'll be taking a look at the most convincing pieces of evidence surrounding Beaufort and what each piece of evidence helps to contribute to the theories surrounding this creature. Back in 1925, a private photographer of whom was a proud and widely respected member of the Royal Geological Society, named N.A. Tombatsi, wrote an incredible reports that first popularized the Sasquatch creature, and eventually led to his own reputation later being completely destroyed. It was common for Tom Barcy to find himself in strange, isolated places around the world, as he would often spend countless days alone in an effort to catalog geographical strata, or find new gorgeous old valleys in the hopes of making revolutionary geographical scientific discoveries in the field. As he found himself exploring the area deep within the Zimu Glacier, Tom Barcy claimed to have spotted a rather strange creature standing no more than 200 to 300 yards away from him. The creature, as he described, appeared to be that of a humanoid creature, in which he writes in his report as the following. Unquestionably, the figure in the outline was exactly like a human being, walking upright and stopping occasionally to pull at some short bushes. It shows up dark against the snow as far as I could make out, and it wore no clothes of any kind. The sighting of the creature continued for a minute before the creature ran off and disappeared completely from his sight. Baffled by the sighting, he quickly gathered as much data and information as he could. He noted he was approximately 15,000 feet above sea level, and gathered information about the bushes, plant life, and environment of the region. Shortly after this gathered information, Tom Barcy left the area to locate his companions. When he returned roughly 2 hours later, Tom Barcy and his companions scored the mountain and found evidence of footprints, in which he described as being similar to that of a man in shape. However, the feet appeared to be 7 inches long and 4 inches wide, but were undoubtedly that of a bipedal creature. It was his written report and gathered evidence that helped to lay the foundation for what would later be considered the Yeti or Sasquatch creature, and would lead to the first expeditions into uncovering the truth. It was not until the early 1950s that the nationwide headlines began running the story of the mysterious and elusive Yeti creature that many would later go on to compare to the unending amount of Sasquatch sightings made all throughout the United States. Back in 1951, a group of hikers were already making headlines for their attempt to scale Mount Everest, and the endless amount of training they'd taken to see the journey to the end of their life-threatening trip. The group came well prepared with the equipment and mental fortitude necessary for their expedition to be seen as a success. But most importantly, in order to prove their climb, they brought along a state-of-the-art camera to take high-quality photographs once they reached the mountain's peak. In direct conflict to their major achievement, the headlines that ran all across the country after the group had finished their ascent was not that of their incredible trek to the top of the world's tallest mountain, but rather that of their incredibly high-quality images, that they had snapped of what appears to be anatomically correct footprints of a strange humanoid-like creature living at an incredibly high altitude in the region. Footprints were originally found by Michael Ward and were later pointed out to fellow members of the hiking group. Eric Shipton quickly got high-quality photographs of the prints, while placing down his ice pick next to it to show off the length and width of the incredible find. Many skeptics had argued the authenticity of the footprint, but research analysis have found anatomically correct details so perfect that it would have been impossible to fake. The footprints showed that the big toe of the creature appeared to be at the perfect size and volume one would see in a creature of a massive size, especially one needed for adequate balance, and the depth of certain areas of the footprint showed a correct distribution of weight that the hikers would never have been able to accurately reproduce. Today, the photograph is seen as one of the most compelling pieces of evidence of the Yeti creature, and even helps to shed light into its weight, size, and evolution. At the height of the Yeti craze and the fascination the public had on the strange and elusive creature, the Daily Mail worked to gather their own evidence and make casting-edge reports on finding the creature themselves. After only 3 years since the photographs were taken by Eric Shipton, the Daily Mail sent out an expedition team on the 19th of March in 1954 to go to the same area the hikers had discovered the compelling evidence of the creature, and begin their research into uncovering the truth of their creation. The research team found strange evidence of the native population having symbolic paintings of the Yeti, as well as myths as to what it could be, with many of the locals even claiming to have seen the creature on their hikes. When the mountaineering leader John Angelo Jackson made the trek up the mountain, he photographed overwhelming evidence of different unidentifiable tracks of flattened footprints from what appeared to be a large bibend. These photographs, however, held in comparison to the evidence the research team would soon uncover in their efforts to prove the existence of the Grigia. As they further investigated local myths and legends amongst the population at the base of the mountain, it appeared that as the locals warmed up to the researchers' inquiries, they began to reveal to them evidence they have gathered of the creature on their own. The researchers were then taken to a monastery in the region and were told by those who lived there that they was in possession of the removed scalp from one of these creatures. The monastery then allowed the researchers to take the scalp back home for further scientific examinations, and these were made by Dr. Bierswas. The doctor found conclusive evidence that the scalp belonged to a known animal at the time of his findings, and that it was not taken from an ape or bear anywhere in the region. Unfortunately, DNA could not be taken from the specimen, as an unknown individual had the scalp completely bleached, and all that remains of the scalp are a collection of cut-up hairs that can only be examined microscopically. The combination of these expeditions and scientific theories would launch the Yeti, also known as the Sasquatch, into popularity, as many believe that the creature could have similar intelligence to humans, given its elusive nature and that the creature was an undiscovered species all across the world. These expeditions would not hold the only gathering evidence, as throughout the United States video evidence of the Sasquatch creature would continue to grow. Noted as being the longest film footage of the Sasquatch creature, the Marble Mountain Weirdness video has been the focus of a wide variety of study, recreations, and debate regarding the validity of the evidence and the overwhelming answer that it provides. The video is roughly 7 minutes in length and provides striking evidence of a humanoid shape atop a nearby mountain ridge. It seems to possess elongated forearms, a large build, and stands human-like in appearance. The footage itself is regarded by Sasquatch specialists as a Class A sighting, which means that the sighting is described as being a clear sighting in circumstances where misinterpretation or misidentification of other animals can easily be ruled out with greater confidence. This means that without a doubt the creature seen in the footage is definitely not any animal of any known kind, of which is a common explanation that skeptics attempt to use to explain away encounters with the Sasquatch. And usually state it's nothing more than a bear sighting. An interesting fact to note is that the evidence of this footage was so compelling that the television show Finding Bigfoot dedicated an entire episode to the 7-minute footage and spent months recreating each shot and measuring out the size and shape of the sighted creature to prove its incredible stature. After all this was carried out, it was said to be evidence of an authentic Bigfoot. They found the footage was not edited in any way, and when the Finding Bigfoot team recreated the shots, it was uncovered that the creature would have stood at roughly 4 feet taller than their tallest cameraman, a size which came out to be approximately 10 feet tall. Further measurement analysis of the footage also shows that at one still frame, the creature can be seen extending its left arm out the entire way. It comes out to roughly 60% of its entire body length. 6 feet long in total. This percentage is seen in apes and monkeys, making its entire arm span 120% of its entire body length, much longer than any normal human ratio. It could very well be that this piece is not only overwhelming evidence of the existence of the Bigfoot creature, but that it also provides useful measurements and physiological information about the creature for further study for Bigfoot experts. So what do you make of the Bigfoot creature? Do you think that is a genuine creature that's good at avoiding run-ins with humans? Or do you think that this creature is just an everyday animal being misidentified? 71% of the Earth's surface is covered with bodies of water, millions of miles of oceans, billions of species, countless untold stories, from the coasts of Japan to the coasts of Australia. Let's sail through the stories of controversial sea vessels that have mysteriously disappeared. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 mysterious ships. 11 boats washed ashore when the first North Korean boat washed up on the western shore of Japan. Their Coast Guard was seriously alarmed. There have been 11 boats found over the years since 2017, and more information comes to light as to what happened to this mysterious fleet. The first few boats that ended up on Japanese coasts had decomposing human remains aboard. The boats have been called ghost ships. Some had markings indicating that it belonged to the North Korean fishing industry, and a few to the North Korean army. One boat even had a tattered North Korean flag. Although there have been no reports from the North Korean government of any missing ships, in November 2017, a small boat carrying 8 alive men arrived at Yuri Hongjo Marina. According to the passengers, they were North Korean fishermen who had gotten into trouble at sea. It was not long before the Japanese Coast Guard found another boat with 10 alive men who also claimed that they were North Korean fishermen. Both ships didn't have modern navigation instruments and engines. There were simple sea vessels that appeared to be rickety. One question which everyone was thinking when this story broke out was, can we believe what these guys are saying? There are a few theories as to why these boats ended up in Japan. Were these men, which were found alive, telling the truth, that they were indeed humble fishermen that just got lost in the sea? Another theory was that they were defectors or refugees trying to escape North Korea in hopes of having a better life in Japan. And others thought they were spies trying to retrieve information that the North Korean military can use as a tactical advantage against their enemies. Considering the data gathered by the Japanese Coast Guard, the closest explanation to this mystery has something to do with the North Korean economic system of quasi-capitalism. There have been stricter international sanctions following Pyongyang's nuclear and missile tests. This created a bigger demand for agricultural production, putting more pressure on fishermen to hit their target. What made matters worse for them was the North Korean government sold fishing rights to China, scaling down the area in which North Korean fishermen can venture out to. This pushed them to take greater risks by going further out to sea, so far that their small fishing vessels were not able to withstand strong currents, causing them to end up on the shores of its Japanese neighbors. Whether or not this is true, nobody knows except for the few men that came back alive, all of whom asked to be returned to their country after they've been found by the Japanese Coast Guard. What exactly happened to the rest of the boats that came back with nothing but corpses? Are there going to be more ships washing up in Western Japan? The only certain thing in this story is that North Korea stays enigmatic about the whole issue. 11 boats and at least 20 of their men ended up in Japan, and the world heard nothing but silence from their government. The Gyeongsang. When you find an oil tanker sailing through a huge body of water, you would think that there is an entire crew manning it. This is not the case for the Gyeongsang. In 2006, an Australian Coast Watch airplane spotted this 80-meter oil tanker floating in the Gulf of Carpentaria in Queensland, inoperable and extensively stripped. Knowing this area is notorious for illegal activities, Australian Coast Guard immediately sent a team to inspect the ship. Ready to apprehend possible violators of international seafaring laws, the Coast Guard was surprised to find out that no one was aboard. There were no signs of anyone being on the ship recently, nor did they find any evidence of illegal activity. The Gyeongsang is believed to have been floating around international waters for a long time on its own, without a crew nor a captain to steer it in a certain direction. As the Australian authorities tried to discover what happened to this ghost ship and how it ended up in the territory, they took a closer look at the cargo. Surprisingly, It had nothing on it except a huge pile of rice. They believed that the ship was used to provide supplies for shipping vessels, but they found no evidence that could confirm that. The authorities were able to retrieve some documents stating that the name of the ship is the Gyeongsang, but this is not indicated on the exterior of the ship. Its name and other identifying marks were all completely painted over. Why would an unmanned and unidentified ship be floating around uncharted waters? Why did it contain an immense amount of rice? Who owns it and where did it come from? The Gyeongsang was found to have a broken tow rope. Considering that the ship was badly stripped down, the broken tow rope could mean that it might have been on its way to a scrap yard, but did not make it. Instead, it drifted southwards and ended up in Queensland. However, this theory does not explain the large quantity of rice aboard and why its identifying features were all covered up. All that is certain about this ghost ship is that it had been sailing for an exceptionally long time. As to where it came from, what happened to it, and where it was headed to, this will forever be a mystery. The fate of the Gyeongsang was decided when no owner claimed it. Not long after it was discovered earlier in 2006, the Australian government determined that it is best to scuttle the ghost ship. Just like what usually happens with abandoned ships, to prevent it from being a navigational hazard, the Gyeongsang was disposed of on the morning of April 21, 2006. It was towed to deep waters and was deliberately sunk. MV Joyita. The almost unsinkable MV Joyita was found in poor condition and drifting near Fiji 5 weeks after it disappeared. It was partially submerged, but it wasn't sunk. However, by the time it was discovered, its 25 crew and passengers were all long gone with the cargo and 3 life rafts. If you were one of the passengers knowing that the ship you are on has a very strong structure, would you have risked sailing on a life raft in an open sea at night instead of staying aboard? The logical answer would be a resounding no, but what exactly happened that night, nobody knows. It all started on October 3, 1955. MV Joyita left Apia Harbor in Samoa bound for the Tekalaw Islands, which is about 270 miles away. It was originally scheduled to leave the day before, but it had an issue with its port engine clutch. It eventually sailed the next day running on only one engine. It had 16 crew members and 9 passengers, including 1 doctor. MV Joyita was expected to reach to Callao in no more than 48 hours. It was supposed to arrive on October 5, 1955. It was already a day overdue when the port of Whakawha reported that MV Joyita never made it. No distress signal was received from the crew, which left everyone with no clues as to what happened. A search and rescue team was sent the same day, and for a whole week they tried to find answers. But they came back with nothing. It wasn't until November 10, 1955, when the captain of another merchant ship sighted MV Joyita drifting 600 miles off its course. It was found slightly submerged and empty. All its passengers and more than 4 tons of cargo were all gone. Based on the remaining fuel, the ship made it about 243 miles on its course before the engine failed due to a pipe leak in the engine cooling system. The radio system was found to have been functioning but only had a reach of 2 miles. Even if the ship had sent a distress signal, it would never have been received. However, this could have been easily fixed by one of the members. These findings create a deeper mystery surrounding the real events that happened that night. For decades, numerous theories have been suggested, but today we are going to focus on the 2 most controversial ones. The first theory accuses the Japanese forces of having kidnapped and killed the passengers of MV Joyita. The year 1955 was still around the time when Japanese forces were to blame concerning any sea vessel disappearances in this area. The MV Joyita might have witnessed something that they shouldn't have, which made them a target of a Japanese group. This would also explain the missing cargo, as it could have been transferred to another ship. The second theory has something to do with Captain Thomas H. Miller, the captain of MV Joyita. He knew that the ship was sturdy and could at least keep them all safe until the daytime. However, the evidence found on the recovered ghost ship proves that the passengers left at night. According to a close friend of the captain, knowing him, he would have never left the ship even if it cost him his life, and yet the captain was gone along with the rest of the people aboard. One of the most logical explanations for this could be that the captain was injured or somehow incapacitated. This theory has gained credence following the discovery of blood-stained bandages on the ship. But what do you make of these mysterious ships and how they went missing?
to move between different points in time. While we recognise this phenomenon as being exclusive to sci-fi films and books, it may be more existent.
Time travel is the theoretical ability to move between different points in time. While we recognize this phenomenon as being exclusive to sci-fi films and books, it may be more existent in our reality than we believe. Several individuals have claimed throughout history to have personally traveled to and from the future. So today we'll be taking a look at 3 occurrences of time travel. World War II time traveler. The Philadelphia Experiment is a 1984 science fiction film based on a rumored experiment conducted by the U.S. Navy. This was said to have happened in 1943. The experiment executed at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard supposedly used electromagnetism to cloak naval ships with invisibility in order to conceal them from undersea enemy bones. This experiment was merely acknowledged as an urban legend, until a mysterious man by Al-Balak stepped forward and claimed otherwise. After watching the Philadelphia Experiment, Al-Balak began to access strange, vivid memories. He'd always been an advanced child, often referred to as a walking encyclopedia by his peers. In addition, he occasionally experienced visions of unknown lands, government secrets, and conversations that occurred before his birth. To aid his remembrance, he decided to undergo New Age memory treatments. Soon after he had a revelation, he quickly recalled that the experiment had not only been a true story, but that he had been directly involved. In a conference related to UFOs in 1990, he shared his story. He professed that his real name was not Al-Balak, but Edward Cameron. He explained that both he and his brother had been naval officers serving on board the USS Eldridge in 1943 and were counterparts of the experiment. Bilot claimed that throughout the experiment, the USS Eldridge had successfully achieved invisibility twice. The first attempt lasted for 15 minutes before returning. However, he and his fellow sailors felt extremely nauseous and delirious afterwards. The second attempt endured nearly 4 hours, but led to even more disturbing consequences. Many sailors became stuck in the metal flooring of the ship, leading to their death, and others suffered mental insanity. As a result, Barlek and his brother decided to jump overboard. After doing so, the brothers soon realized they were no longer in Philadelphia, but at the coast of Montauk, New York. The pair was immediately rescued by guards and helicopter patrols, then escorted to the basement of a government building. They discreetly met with John von Neumann, the same scientist who initiated the experiment in Philadelphia. To their surprise, he had aged significantly. Neumann revealed that it was no longer 1943, but rather 1983. While invisible, the USS Eldridge had come into contact with an energy field of time and space. This field had caused the ship to be sucked 40 years into the future. To prevent the field from expanding and consuming the entire Earth, the brothers were instructed to destroy the ship's equipment. Bilek and his brother fulfilled their instructions in order to return to safety in 1943, but instead encountered an unexpected fate. They arrived 200 years into the future in 2173. Through watching news channels, they briefly experienced the world's futuristic changes. The U.S. had become a military state. Many large land masses had been lost, including the entire state of Florida, and the global population had decreased to 300 million people due to a devastating war. Soon after, Balak then somehow spontaneously shot forward another 600 years, to 2749. He claimed that during this time our society had enveloped to a utopic state. Our cities levitated above the ground due to anti-gravity technology. Advanced artificial intelligence allowed human beings to stop working entirely, and money had become nearly non-existent. Eventually, he was able to return to 2173, reconnect with his brother, and travel back to 1943. Upon his return, Barlett continued to work on the USS Eldridge until the government grew uncomfortable with the knowledge he obtained. In order to silence him, they sent him back to 1927 to be reborn with a new identity and a new family. Government officials, scientists, and historians have dismissed Al Barlett's bizarre experience with time travel, but many believers hold on to his story. Unfortunately, we'll have to wait another 100 years or so to measure whether these predictions, warnings, and experiences were true. Others have suggested that Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein also worked on the secret project. It's said that both of them spent several weeks on the project, and it's one of the reasons why it actually worked. Allegedly, two of the greatest minds at the time were brought on board to see if this experiment would actually work, and according to some, it did. Pedro Oliva Ramirez, the man who traveled to a parallel universe. Going back on the 9th of November 1986, a man by the name of Pedro Oliva Ramirez drove from Seville, Spain to his hometown. Interestingly, he took this route all the time because he knew the surroundings very well. However, he soon noticed that when he took this route on this particular occasion, he saw an unfamiliar sight. This was in the form of a 6-lane highway. The highway was surrounded with bizarre terrain, strange building structures, and an unidentifiable flying object in the sky. As he observed this peculiar environment, his vehicle filled with heat and a collection of distant voices, Ramirez claimed the voices said he'd been transported to a new dimension by extraterrestrials. Ramirez continued to drive down the new, unknown route. As he drove, cars passed him with precisely 80 minutes between one another. The cars were either white or beige and were all outstate models with thin, dark license plates. They appeared to hover above the pavement without visible wheels or tires. After 1 hour, Ramirez reached a sign that stated the directions to Malaga, Seville, and Alcalá. Confused, he decided to turn back towards Seville. To his surprise, he soon found himself at the steps of his home in Alcalá. When Pedro entered his home, he noticed that the watch he'd been wearing was no longer working. When he was able to access the time he was shunned, he had begun his drive at 3:30 p.m. and it was now 7:15 p.m. While his route from Seville to Alcalá typically took 30 minutes, he had used 3 hours worth of fuel consumption. In addition, he felt severe nausea, fatigue, and dizziness. Ramirez frustratingly attempted to retrace his steps, but he was unable to find the 6-lane highway building's strange landscape or road sign. A parallel universe is defined as an alternate undetectable universe that coexists with our own universe, but operates under a separate, fundamentally different laws of physics. Scientists and researchers believe that if traveling to a different point in time is possible, it would exist through these mirrored parallel dimensions. Knowledge of how to access other dimensions is undetermined, but potentially related to wormholes found in spacetime. Despite being unsuccessful in his investigation, Ramirez continues to believe this is what he experienced. He continues to be known as a man who traveled to a parallel universe. The drunk time traveler from 2048. Brian Johnson was arrested for public intoxication in Casper, Wyoming on October 2, 2017. However, the 27-year-old insisted that he was innocent. He claims his innocence by stating that he had supposedly time-traveled from the year 2048 in order to warn authorities and citizens of an upcoming alien invasion. Johnson had arrived at a medical emergency room at 10:30 p.m. with bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, and a heavy odor of alcohol. After causing a disturbance and refusing to speak to nurses or doctors, authorities were called. Once police arrived, Johnson claimed that he had knowledge of an alien attack that would take place in 2020. In addition, he demanded to meet with the president of Casper, Wyoming, in order to warn other residents of the inevitable arrival of extraterrestrial beings. According to the young man, aliens had filled his body with alcohol and instructed him to stand on a giant pad, which would transport him back to 2018. However, there was a glitch and he had arrived in 2017. Johnson was unable to answer questions of why aliens would transport him to the past to warn us of their attack. He was allegedly found with a blood alcohol concentration of 0.136 and was soon transported to the Natrona County Detention Center. While Johnson's story was generally ridiculed by media outlets, it nevertheless sparked a public debate on the potential of extraterrestrial life. Extraterrestrial life is a central talking point in the conversation of time travel. While Johnson was certainly intoxicated, his allegations could potentially hold truth. We've yet to endure Brian Johnson's war on 2020 alien invasion, but there's still time. These three individuals are not the first nor the last to claim to experience oddities in our physical universe. Many other historic individuals have claimed to have witnessed other periods of time. While these past stories of supposed time travel are typically dismissed or labeled as a figment of the imagination, extensive research is still being conducted on parallel universes, wormholes, and the potential to transport human beings through faults of time. Time travel may not exist as it's depicted in Back to the Future, but the possibility should not be entirely erased from unnatural laws. So what do you make of these occurrences of time travel? Only relatively recently in the history of humanity has mankind had the ability to travel into space. It is reported that 550 people have made the journey into space since Yuri Gagarin became the first human to go into space in 1961. Around 2/3 of those who have made it to space have been American. The opportunity to go into space is something that many of us dream of, but for a chosen few who have made this journey, the experience was more bizarre than could be expected. The mysteries of space are infinite, and our understanding of the universe's mysterious forces remains very much in its infancy. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 of the most bizarre occurrences experienced by astronauts. Yang Liwei. The first strange story is of Yang Liwei. Yang Liwei was the first man sent into space by China. As a result of this mission, known as Changzhou 5, China became the 3rd independent country to send humans into space. It was on this mission that Yang Liwei heard some unsettling sounds. He recalled that the noises sounded as if they were caused by someone knocking the body of which neither came from outside nor inside the spacecraft. Understandably, this caused Yang some concern. He went to look out of the spacecraft's portal, seeking a reasonable explanation for the troubling knocking sounds. However, nothing could explain the strange sounds. After safely returning to Earth, Yang set about trying to find an explanation for the sounds with the help of top scientists and space experts. Professor Goh Che-hyang, an expert in space engineering at the University of Singapore, has speculated that the knocking may have been caused by something hitting the spacecraft, such as space debris. However, no one has been able to verify this. One of his colleagues, Wei Xing-so, presented a different explanation, suggesting that the strange sounds could have been a result of expansion or contraction of the spaceship, especially since the temperature could change considerably within orbit. Interestingly, similar knocking sounds have been heard on other Chinese space expeditions, including ones taking place in 2005 and 2008. The fact that similar sounds have been heard on other Chinese space expeditions suggests that perhaps there is an issue, common to many Chinese spacecrafts, which is responsible for the sounds. Fortunately, there have been no major incidents that posed any danger on these voyages, meaning that the strange sounds were possibly nothing for the astronauts to worry about. Many people believe that space must be totally silent due to the lack of air or water particles for sound waves to travel through. However, if accounts by other astronauts are anything to go by, hearing sounds in space is certainly not uncommon. Other examples of sounds heard in space include a strange noise heard during a test flight for the moon landing mission in 1969, after the spacecraft had been cut off from radio contact with Earth. The unearthly sounds were described as space music, and only recently has a recording of the sounds been released to the public. Theories abound as to what could have caused the strange noises heard by Yang Liwei, from logical explanations to the more left-field possibility of alien forces trying to enter Yang's spacecraft. Yang is now a major general in China's Air Force, and says he has never again heard sounds similar to those which he heard in space. Ultimately, we may never know what caused these mysterious sounds. Dr. Story Musgrave. Our second bizarre story is that of the strange objects captured by Dr. Story Musgrave in space. Franklin Story Musgrave, known as Story Musgrave, was born in 1935 in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. One of 7 children, Musgrave grew up to become a physician and a NASA astronaut, despite having come from an extraordinarily dysfunctional family full of abuse and alcoholism. In 1996, he became only the 2nd astronaut to fly on 6 space flights. A highly intelligent individual, he holds 6 academic degrees, making him the world's most formally educated astronaut. In 1998, Musgrave held the record for the oldest person in orbit at age 61. With a huge variety of interests and a highly diverse range of career experiences, Musgrave has obviously had a very interesting life. One of the most curious tales of his space career was one involving a strange sighting from his spacecraft. Musgrave has said to have seen on at least 2 of his missions something he can only describe as a snake-looking being at least 6 to 8 feet long, looking rubbery due to internal waves, and Musgrave believes the snake follows you for long periods of time throughout space. and appeared to swim due to the velocity of the nearby spacecraft. Due to the lack of gravity in space, items like the snake are able to glide freely, in what Musgrave calls an extraordinary ballet. The only theory that Musgrave has to explain the strange object is that it may have been an uncritical rubber seal from the main engines. Interestingly, Musgrave has a strong belief in the existence of other life forms, a belief that was crystallized on his many space voyages. He says, the more you fly in space, the more you see an incredible amount of things out there, and that sort of thing brings to you really a certainty that other living creatures are out there. In other interviews, he has said, I feel that they're everywhere out there, and they're doing interstellar travel. We'll think differently about ourselves once we accept that. Now 84, it is unlikely that Musgrave will ever get a concrete explanation for his bizarre sightings while in space. However, the fact that such an intelligent and accomplished individual believes with such conviction that we are not alone in the universe is a comfort to those who adamantly believe that humans are not the only species inhabiting the universe. UFO captured by International Space Station's cameras in February 2020. A truly strange occurrence was captured by the International Space Station's cameras. Viewers were astonished to see what appeared to be a UFO following the International Space Station, also known as ISS, for around 20 minutes. The bizarre sighting was captured on the U.S. Space Agency's live camera as they were doing routine maintenance. The footage appears to show a mysterious cone-shaped object zooming above the International Space Station. At one point in the video, NASA's camera actually focuses on the object, as if to query the nature of the unidentified item. The footage is 22 minutes long in total. The object consistently moves at the same speed as the ISS, which is estimated to have a velocity of an incredible 78 kilometers per second. In a truly inexplicable twist, at the end of the footage, the UFO, which is believed to be around the same size as a bus, shoots upwards and disappears, leaving behind a green burst of light. What could this UFO be? It seems that there is no explanation for the sighting. However, some have speculated that the UFO may be some sort of secret military technology. This is not the only example of a recent UFO caught on camera. Back in 2016, an eerie light was identified near Earth NASA live feed. Soon after it appeared, the feed abruptly stopped, with NASA later claiming that the object was either space debris, a reflection, or light from Earth. In another case, while watching the live stream from the International Space Station in April 2020, viewers were similarly shocked to see a cylindrical object. The live feed from the ISS suddenly went down and the live stream was cut off. A former NASA engineer has described the sighting as nothing more than space dandruff. The former engineer James Oberg said, I've had enough experience with real spaceflight to realize that what's being seen in many videos is nothing beyond normal from fully mundane phenomena occurring in unearthly settings. However, many are not convinced by this interpretation and remain certain that the sighting is evidence of something much more significant. Only a small number of people have ever made the journey into space, and thus, it's difficult for the average person to comprehend what the experience would be like. Whether the experiences of Yang Liwei and Dr. Musgrove were caused by real stimuli, or were merely illusions or tricks of the light, we may never know the true story. Perhaps even more intriguing are the UFO-like objects identified on ISS's own cameras. These are clear to see, and if the items pictured are of a classified military nature, it is likely that we will never get an explanation. The topic of UFOs is an interesting one, and although some think of aliens when the subject comes up, it's important to note that a UFO is simply an object that can't be identified at that moment in time. It's only been in recent years that the two have been paired. With that being said, more and more UFOs are being reported every year, with some of the most recent ones coming from the recent SpaceX launch. As of right now, the majority of these UFOs that are recorded in space remain a mystery. But what do you make of these strange, bizarre experiences in space? One of the great things about the beach is the more interesting things you can find get washed ashore. Many people like to scour beaches for unique shells to collect. Some people find sand dollars, starfish, or shark teeth. But sometimes people find other strange things washed on the beach that they wouldn't have ever expected. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at interesting beach discoveries. Whale vomit. Somsak Bunrit, a garbage collector in Thailand, spent a lot of time scouring beaches for anything of value. He had recently lost his job as a fisherman and didn't have a better way to provide for his family, but his luck seemingly changed in 2019. He was on Torredio Island when he noticed a yellow mound that felt almost like wax. 3 years earlier, a couple in Lancashire smelled a rotting fish and followed the smell to find out where it was coming from. They had found a large lump with a foul smell and wax-like texture. They knew they'd found ambergris since they'd seen a picture of it in the newspaper, so they wrapped it up to take it with them. The lump they found was worth around 50,000 pounds. Ambergris, more commonly known as whale vomit, is produced in the stomachs of whales. It binds food and other objects together that they're unable to digest. After they produce enough of it, the whale regurgitates it, and it floats on the surface of the water. Since it floats around the ocean's surface, it's often found by fishermen, but occasionally it's a wash-up on shore. Ambergris is often referred to as the treasure of the sea. It's very valuable and has many uses. Although it initially has a foul smell, it has a sweet smell once it's had time to dry. The smell is also very long-lasting, making it a popular ingredient in perfumes. However, it's rare for people to discover ambergris. It can float around the oceans for years. Some lumps have been discovered that are more than 100 years old. It's also only produced by a small number of sperm whales. It's impossible to know where it will wash up in the world, which only makes it more valuable. The use of ambergris has been banned in the United States to avoid exploiting an endangered species, but it's still used in many other countries around the world today. Ice tsunamis beach in November of 2019. Many residents of Ontario and New York experienced a phenomenon called an ice tsunami. Wind gusts were so strong that ice was pushed over the retaining walls. The ice continued to pile up and be pushed around by the wind. There were many homes that were damaged from the water and ice. Ice waves crashed into several properties in New York, eventually leading to a mandatory evacuation. An ice tsunami occurred in 2013 in Minnesota. Ice from a lake was pushed around 80 feet inland, with walls of ice forming as high as 30 feet. The ice covered a span of around 2.5 miles long. Water and ice got through windows and houses, and many boat houses were completely destroyed. Fortunately, ice tsunamis are a rare occurrence, but there are documented reports of them dating back to 1822. They're most common in spring because frozen bodies of water begin to thaw. If wind gusts are strong enough, this thawed ice can be blown around easily. As long as the shoreline isn't too steep, the ice can pile up and eventually be pushed inland by the wind. Ice tsunamis can be extremely dangerous. Some experts say they're even worse than a flood. With a flood, water rushes through an area, so you don't have to worry about it getting worse once it stops. Although floods are disastrous and they can make it hard to get back to normal life, at least you know when they're finished. With ice tsunamis, you never know when the wind will pick up again and push in more ice. Some homeowners have even noticed that the ice seeped through concrete and steel. Globsters are carcasses that have washed ashore and are difficult to identify. They may have bones, tentacles, hair, eyes, and other features, but not all of them do. One of the first known globster sightings occurred in 1896. 2 children were at a beach when they spotted one, though half of it had already sunk into the sand because it was so heavy. It weighed 5 tons and was believed to be the carcass of a giant octopus or squid. A chunk of it was preserved and tested over the years. In 2004, it was confirmed that it was actually a whale carcass. In May of 2018, beachgoers in the Philippine province of Oriental Mindoro discovered what looked like a large hairy globster. It was gray and white and measured 20 feet long and had a very foul smell, adding to the belief that it was a decaying whale carcass. Officer Vox Crusader later confirmed his belief after running some tests on it. According to many studies, the majority of globsters found are most likely whale carcasses. However, some have been found that were carcasses of other sea creatures. In 1988, another was found in Mangrove Bay, Bermuda. This one was confirmed to be that of a shark. In 1990, one was found in Scotland but was never tested. The same thing happened in 1997 in Tasmania. Some people were suspicious about the fact that no one bothered running tests on them, but it's likely scientists simply assumed they were whales since that's what most of them are. Some people were suspicious about the fact no one bothered running tests on them, but it's likely scientists simply assumed they were whales since that's what most of them are. Sometimes tests are run on them, but the results are inconclusive. Some people believe these must be the carcasses of unidentified sea monsters. If this were true, it could potentially be a major breakthrough in science. However, many scientists have stated that just because a sample is unknown, it doesn't mean the animal from which it was obtained is unknown. It most likely means the sample was too contaminated or had degraded too much to gain any information from it. Giant Lego men in 2007 and 2008. Giant Lego men were found on beaches in the Netherlands and in England. In October of 2011, Jeff Heinemann was taking a walk at Siesta Key Beach in Florida when he spotted a giant Lego man that had washed ashore. The Lego man was 8 feet tall and weighed about 100 pounds. His shirt read, "No real than you are" on the front and "Ego Leonard" on the back. In December of 2014, Tatsuya Hirata found another Lego man while surfing in Japan. Once again, the shirt read the same phrase. At first, people thought it was a marketing campaign to advertise Legoland, Florida. However, a spokesperson for the company denied these claims and stated they had no connection to the Lego man. It's believed the Lego men are works of a Dutch artist whose alter ego is named Ego Leonard, has a gallery of paintings of the Lego man with sayings such as, "I love you and play by the rules." He also has a book called "No Real Than You Are." On his website, he states that he's from a virtual world, but has been burdened by people who only want money and power. He says because of his burden, he's grown curious about the outside world and wants to learn about the way others live and think. Shortly after the Lego man was found in Florida, Leonard emailed a local news media site, saying that was glad he made it there and that he liked the people and the weather. This has led to a theory that Leonard wants people to open their minds and think about what it's like to wash up on shore and have to be around complete strangers. In this scenario, you'd be completely free of social media and anything else of use on the internet that would take you away from the real world. It's believed that Leonard wants people to think about how they would act and what kind of people they would be if something like this happened. So what do you make of these interesting and unique items found at the beach? At over 3,400 square miles, Yellowstone is larger than the state of Rhode Island and Delaware combined. Although Yellowstone is not the largest national park in the U.S., it's perhaps best known for sitting on top of a supervolcano. The system is still considered active and contains a reservoir of magma big enough to fill the Grand Canyon several times over. For the past few years, various researchers have said that many earthquakes have hit going back on the 19th of April, the 27th, and the 4th of May, 2018. Specialists said that over a period of 2 weeks, more than 200 earthquakes hit Yellowstone, and this told scientists that a huge tectonic plate shift had taken place underneath the surface of the Earth. The most recent news to come from the national park, though, is that a woman fell into a hot spring. At this moment in time, the national park is closed to visitors. So park officials have said she was there illegally. When she fell into the hot springs, she suffered various wounds. The national park has been shut from visitors since the 24th of March, and although there has been talks about it being opening back up to the public, officials have said there's still ongoing talks about what's going to happen. The woman in question ignored the warnings and was found walking on the roaming side of the park. As of right now, the individual hasn't been identified, but she could be seen taking photographs close to Old Faithful. Despite falling in and injuring herself, the woman was able to pull herself out and drive around 50 miles. She was, however, stopped by park ranger and airlifted to a burn center at Eastern Idaho Regional Medical Center. Park officials have said that even though it's bad she was injured, she may face penalties for not following the rules. They've said that everyone else has been doing a good job at staying away from the national park during this time. Surveillance footage has also been released of an individual walking 2 dogs, and it's been suggested this is the person that fell into the thermal spring. However, as of right now, this hasn't been confirmed. She entered the park this Tuesday early in the morning. Visitors are also warned by park officials to stay on the boardwalks when walking close to thermal features. Various people over the years have not listened and have ended up getting injured. Over the last few years, activity has increased at Yellowstone, and this includes things such as new erupting vents and surface fractures. Due to this increased activity, park officials have closed a boardwalk in the upper Poplar Basin. This is because getting hit with this water can injure people. Researchers recently measured the temperature of Old Faithful's geyser, and they said that it has an average temperature of 169.7 degrees Fahrenheit. The national park said the following on its website: water in hot springs can cause severe or fatal burns, and scalding water underlies most of the thin breakable crust around hot springs. Hot springs have injured or killed more people in Yellowstone than any other natural feature. So what do you guys make of this?